Welcome to the JP8 report. This is James Pierce with the JP8 report, episode 24. We Today's episode is called Common Sense or What, and may go off topic, but that's our main goal for the day. So thank you for visiting the JP8 report. Remember, you can reach me at jp8report@gmail.com. You can see me on Facebook, Parler, Apple, Podbean, Rumble is my primary, and a variety of other platforms. Please don't forget to subscribe to any of these platforms to stay up to date on my podcast. I do this once or twice a week, depending on what's going on in news and doing research on material and stuff, okay? But thank you for tuning in for this episode. Like I said, it's episode 24. I'm going to read a couple paragraphs from a book, and I'm going to tell you who it is in just a couple minutes. And just 2 paragraphs, okay? Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. For when we suffer or are exposed to the same miseries by a government, which we might expect in a country without government, our calamity is heightened by reflecting that we furnish the means by which we suffer. Government, like dress, is the badge of lost innocence. The palaces of kings are built on the ruins of the bowers of paradise, for which the impulses of conscience clear, uniform, and irresistibly obeyed. Man would need no other lawgiver. But that not being the case, he finds it necessary to surrender up a part of his property to furnish means for the protection of the rest. And this he is induced to do by the same prudence which, by the other case, advises him of 2 evils to choose the least. Wherefore, security being the true design, the end of government, it unanswerably follows that which form thereof appears most likely to ensure it to us with the least expense and greatest benefit, it preferably to all others. That's pretty intense, okay? And then this other one, as much has been said about the advantages of reconciliation, which, like an agreeable dream, hath passed away and left us as we were. But it is but right that we should examine the contrary side of this argument and inquire into some of the many material injuries which the colonies sustain and which will sustain by being connected and dependent on Great Britain, to examine the connection and dependence on the principles of nature and common sense, to see what we have to trust to if separated, and to what we are to expect if dependent. I guess I figured out that was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, okay? It was just 2 paragraphs out of it. It tells a good bit of the monstrosity of being subservient to Great Britain, and what we could do for ourselves if we were independent. Our country was built on independence, not big government, like what we have become nowadays. Regardless of how you think, I'm a conservative, and we've come to a point where both sides, Republican and Democrat, accepted the mainstay of being in big government, and that we should do everything because we're afraid of the alternative that's going on out there, where you know, if we cut this or slash this, we'll lose votes. Well, being a leader sometimes means that you do the right thing, even though the people around you don't believe it's the right thing to do. That's a good thing to think about. I mean, it's not saying you just run amok and do everything you want to do. You have to think about the people around you and the capabilities and the freedom that they have. The United States Constitution that we obey, that we just don't discard and put it in a corner and break glass if necessary type environment. That's not how we were set up as a country. People think we do. People believe that the Constitution is a living, breathing organism, and it evolves over time and makes us a better country and stuff. Last time I checked, when you put something in ink doesn't mean it grows. It's static. We adhere to the Constitution because we were granted those freedoms as it was written, not what the person at the time that's reading it thinks it was written about. That's how you get in a whole heap of trouble. So just think about that. Common sense. If you ever get a chance, pick up a copy of it somewhere. There are a lot. Make sure it's not abridged. Make sure it's the real deal. Okay, because some people like the living, breathing organism argument. You want to find a copy that's pure and not pure, but I mean fully written. All the words are in it, so people can't interdict their own opinions about that document, whether it be different abridged verbs, forms of the Federalist Papers or the Constitution, Declaration of Independence. People will try everything. Okay, that's how we ended up with 100 different versions of the Bible. People want to translate into what they feel like it says at this time, instead of going by how it was written. So some of the stuff I want to talk to you about was about common sense, or what. How fast, without using common sense, how fast would it take to move our democracy into a dictatorship or a autocracy? Okay, like I say in a lot of my podcasts, look at the IPR from Mexico from 1910 to 2000. Okay, how one-party rule in our hemisphere transformed an entire prosperous country into a poor, pathetic country that is slowly but surely trying to shake off the web of contempt for the people in their country. Now they're saturated with those cartels that have infiltrated the police forces and stuff, so you can't do nothing in that country. Well, I ain't saying that happens here. I'm very doubtful that it would happen hardly at all over here. But since January, some of the stuff that's been happening in D.C. and across the United States, you have the cancel culture environment. People are like, well, if you say anything against the Democrats or anything against anyone, we're going to cancel you. Ask the people that's been banned off Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, and they try to exercise their free speech, and people come down on them whether they agree with them or not. Probably more likely not. Then I take that part back. But you have a culture of people that's like they'll shame you into changing your mind, like wearing masks. I'm fully vaccinated. Why should I wear a mask? That's a lot of people are starting to say. Even Democrats are actually saying, "Why do I have to keep wearing this thing?" Because I'm got shot 1, shot 2, or if you do the J&J, you got your shot. After about 2 weeks, you should be fully vaccinated and everything. I'm not saying you're perfectly perfectly inoculated, because there's always that chance, just like when you get the flu vaccine. But, what's going to keep you if you're out on the street and you're trying to cross the street and you obey the stoplight and say, "Oh, look, I can cross now," and you walk in the street and get hit. You did everything in your power to keep from getting hit, but you still got hit. Okay? That's a pretty good analogy. I'd hate to be the person getting hit, though. But are we supposed to live our life in fear? So as long as they keep us telling us we can't go out, we can't eat out, we can't go to the movies, we can't assemble, we can't go to church, we have to wear these masks. In Michigan now, if you're age 2 and above, you're required to wear a mask. Where does it end? Okay? They limit your speech. You can't come out against it. They tell you when and where you can go to church. Well, thank you to the Supreme Court. They've been coming down on that a whole lot lately. They want to take your weapons. Look at these resolutions in Congress right now. Thank goodness Senators Sinema and Senator Manchin from West Virginia, they're steadfast on saying we're not doing nothing with the filibuster. Don't even approach us about changing it. That's more Krista Sinema, other than Joe Manchin, because Joe Manchin's him-hawing right now. If they do away with the filibuster, the Senate's going to become a mini house and just ram everything through majority rules without any consideration of the minority. Okay? Last time I checked, 75 million people voted for President Trump over the 81 million that voted for President Biden. I mean, there's still 75 million people that voted for the Republican. We're not discounted. We're part of this equation. We're not in leadership, but the art of politics is compromise. And why is it that every time you turn around that Republicans, they have to compromise with Democrats and move to the left? Okay, why do we have to move to the left to come to agreement with the Democrats? Why can't the Democrats move to the right and compromise with us? Because the answer is because they don't want to compromise. They want to stomp their feet, cross their arms, and pout. It's my way or the highway. I'm not saying Republicans don't do that every now and then, because they do, and it's wrong. Okay, we have to come to the middle and figure out what we're going to do is better for the country. But, if they limit your speech and they keep the restrictions from COVID on, that make it really hard to possess weapons, or they want to confiscate your weapons or put your weapons on a registry so they know who has what weapons. Okay? They make it easier for your weapons to be confiscated without warrant, which is against the Fourth Amendment. But if they write it in the law, until then, people are going to, the law gives us the right to take your weapons from you. When you go background checks now, if this ever gets passed, they want to take up to 30 days without reason to grant you the right to purchase a weapon. Okay, I understand making sure people are legitimate, but if you enforce existing law, you won't have to have new laws. So if organizations, law enforcement organizations aren't adhering to the law and enforcing it, what are more laws going to do to prevent the illegal acquisition of weapons? So if you're a politician or a law enforcement officer, and you say, well, I'm just not going to enforce that law because that's not right, and then someone gets a hold of a weapon that's not supposed to because they should be mentally flagged, but, I'm not going to sit down here and do the paperwork because it's going to take me too long, and I really got to get home. You're putting everybody at risk. And they want HR 1 and S1. They want to stack the deck on the elections. Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution. Read it. Okay, that'll explain it. It's a state's responsibility for elections. And then, we're on the footsteps. We're going from democracy to dictatorship. You can't enforce your views on our country without having the military to back you up, because our military is ran by civilian authority. So what do? You indoctrinate your soldiers. When I say soldiers, it means everybody, okay? You indoctrinate your soldiers into your way of thinking. So like the Russians did in the Soviet days, they had political officers in the ranks. So whatever the commander or the first sergeant would do, or the head of the NCO Corps would do, it had to go through the commissar, which is the political officer. Okay, and if he went against the political officer, that commander would be relieved. They got this thing called critical race theory, talking about white supremacy. Evidently, everything a white person has ever done in the history of mankind has been in the supremacy of their race. I beg to differ. I mean, black on black and white on black and black on Asian, Asian on white and Native American, it makes your head turn. Okay. Last time I checked, well, I'm a Christian, so I believe that all men are created equal. Okay, and when I say men, women too. Okay, in the eyes of God, we bleed red. We all come from Adam and Eve. That's the way I believe. So there should be no race. How do you say it? There should not be bias toward race at all. If you make it race, you're being racist. Okay, Maxine Waters, she's racist. I don't agree with her anything she says. Oh my goodness, that lady, she just won't be quiet, and she all she wants to do is flame the flame of dissension in our country, and make people rise up against each other. The best thing for her to do is just retire. Just retire. We're supposed to get along. There's no reason for this dissension. Okay. If you want to talk about slavery, that could be another subject. But throughout history, the Egyptians enslaved the Israelis. The tribes in Africa enslaved each other at the time. Native Americans, they'd fight against each other and then sell off the losers as slaves. You go into Mexico. The Aztecs did the same thing. The Incas did the same thing. The Mayans did the same thing. The Babylonians did it. The Persians did it. The Mongols did it. Throughout history, the scourge of slavery is there, and there is no way you can make everyone to pay reparations, because, and just to be joking around about it, if everyone was to pay reparations, I give a $20 bill to that person gives that $20 bill to another person, and that one gives that $20 bill to another person, until it makes it back to you, because eventually the people you came from, like I'm Irish, we were subservient to the British Empire. It happens, okay? But yeah, critical race theory is just a very racist form of indoctrination, and it should go away. Okay, we're all Americans. We're human beings. Okay, if we choose to be racist, it's because we chose to be racist. It's not the word systemic. Okay, subvert and ignore the Constitution. We've already gone that. Last week, some Democrats wanted to propose a bill to increase the number of Supreme Court justices to 13. What good is that going to do? And it said in the legislature they immediately appoint 4 justices to the Supreme Court. That would make 13 justices, 7 Democrat, 6 Republican, if that's the way you want to look at it. So immediately they would be in the majority. Court packing. Okay. They want to expand the number of circuit courts throughout the country. And then populate them with all liberal-minded justices. Stacking the court, I was just talking about. Kill the filibuster. I mentioned that earlier in this episode. They want to kill the filibuster because they want to have one-party rule. If they kill the filibuster and they have the majority in the House and in the Senate and the White House, they can push through any amount of legislation they want, and not a thing the minority party, be it Republican or Democrat, can do anything about the whole situation but sit back and watch it flow. And then wait till they're in the majority and they undo the same exact thing that the previous party in power did. That is one reason for the reasoned, populated United States Senate that was supposed to, when it was initially formed, was supposed to represent the values of the individual states and not the populace. That's what the purpose of the House of Representatives is for. The Democrats believe in internationalism, where the U.S. is just like any other nation on the face of the earth. The term is American exceptionalism, because we're Americans. We're the greatest country on the face of the earth. We have that capability of being influential to other nations on the earth, but we're not like everybody else, because we have our United States Constitution and the capability of following that Constitution for over 220-something years, 230-something years. And that makes us exceptional, because we don't ignore that document. But, if we're like any other nations, we can just pass all these other rules and people just do as they want to do. Okay. Open borders. Part of that, the slide to dictatorship is you let everyone that wants to come over, and then you grant them citizenship through amnesty. And then and what do they do at that point? Well, the Democrats think that everyone that's Latino coming across the border is going to vote Democrats. But what we found out in Texas is that a lot of Latino voters are actually conservative. Not all of them, but a good bit of them. So is that a wise venture on the Democrats to have a great influx of people? Put 1 million extra people in the state of Texas, and what we're going to get? We're going to get an extra congressional seat. Maybe we have enough people in that congressional area, in that part of the state, where we can have another conservative congressional district. Just because we get an extra one doesn't mean it's got to be liberal or liberal leaning or Republican leaning. I mean, we got another congressional seat. And Texans have figured out that we may have our problems sometimes, but we know how to overcome them. We're freedom-loving people. We like to do stuff on our own. Okay, look at the number. They're talking 800,000 new jobs created this year in the state of Texas, and we just had a major ice storm. We came out of COVID. Talking about COVID in the state of Texas, I read the numbers every day about the results of the status of COVID in the state of Texas. Our rolling 7-day average is like close to 40 deaths, and that's all out of 30 million people. And we had just over 1,000 new cases in the state of Texas that was reported yesterday. So you can't tell me that we have to keep wearing a mask all the time. I mean, if a person wants to wear a mask, don't shame them. Let them do it, because there's nothing wrong with that. If it's what they want to do. But where we've made progress in our state, and people need to quit shaming other people and making them fearful of their life. Get them back out there in the workforce. Get them back to work, and we can even be more successful. We'll be that shining light on the hill that everybody else in the United States is looking at for an example to follow. Okay, people look to states like us and Florida as an example to follow. Who California? What's that? New York? Is that the place everyone leaves? Yeah. Their population, both of their populations keep dropping. They're about to lose their governor, and then California's about to lose their governor. So how are they an example to follow? They're a bunch of crooked people, that's all. And Michigan ain't too far behind them either. Language barriers. You have a lot of people that don't assimilate into the United States when they come here. It's hard to teach people foreign languages sometimes. A kid, that's why you learn languages when you're in school, because the brain of a young person has the capability of learning multiple language. I know just a little bit of Spanish. I'm trying to learn more, but it's hard for me at this age. But I'm not saying I'm that old, but I am. A lot of people that come across the border, they don't want to learn English. They don't try to learn English. Some of them do. Okay, but the majority of them is just English is a second language, and in the U.S., English is our primary language for the most part. You walk around in a store, people aren't just going to flat out start talking to you in Spanish. Not all the time, though. And then also with all these benefits, unemployment benefits, Social Security benefits, SNAP and Lone Star cards, and they keep giving you money to keep you from working. Section 8 housing is another one. The incentive to go out and working is not there. But if you sit back and the government sends you a check or direct deposit or a debit card every month so you can pay for groceries or child care, and why would you go get a job? You can sit back, eat bonbons, and keep your feet up on your chair and watch TV 24/7, and it doesn't make a matter in the whole world because you're it. And you can play keyboard warrior as long as you want, and it doesn't matter because the government gives you a check. So it's like, if Biden gives me $2,500 to $3,000 a month and I don't have to do nothing for it, how about if I just keep voting for him, because they won't cut off the money? The rule of thumb goes, if you ever create a federal benefit, it'll never go away. And some of those benefits actually do need to go away, because Um, there's only so much money we can borrow. The debt just exponential. $86,000 a person, whether it be a 1-month-old or someone like the lady that died the other day. She was 116 years old. Everybody in our country owes $86,000 to the government. And anytime we keep adding to the debt, that number is just going to continuously go up. And please pray that our interest rates don't go up, because that's going to make it even harder for us to pay that debt down. Okay. And how do we prevent this? Well, I would venture to say we hold our political leadership accountable, prevent them from doing stuff like this. Why would we want one party rule from people that don't have the best interests of the United States at hand? We didn't get into voting rights, but there's a lot there. How certain parties will circumvent the vote to plus up their numbers, and they don't want verification of all this stuff, making sure voting's legal. But where's that accountability? We should always hold our political leadership accountable. I expect people to hold me accountable. Tax dollars are tax dollars, and the object is for us to follow the United States Constitution and be free. And if you sit back in your one-party rule and you're steadily taking back the rights of Americans, you're disrupting the fabric of our society that's supposed to follow the Constitution. And we need that back. So, to sum it all up is, we started this episode out by reading parts of Common Sense by Thomas Paine. He wrote that February of 1776, I believe, okay? If you really want me to tell you, Thomas Paine, February 14th, Valentine's Day of 1776 is when he wrote it. He wrote it in Philadelphia. So my recommendation to you, the listener, the watcher, is pick up a copy of Common Sense and read it. Okay? This is James Pierce with the JP8 report. I'm out.